World War II. It's a name we all know, a conflict that literally consumed the entire globe, took more lives than any other in history, and completely redrew the world map. So how did it all happen? Let's dive in. But here's the thing. To really understand how this war began, we actually have to jump to its terrifying conclusion. I know, it sounds a little backward, but sometimes seeing the end is the only way to truly grasp the beginning. So, picture this. It's just after 8 a.m. in Hiroshima, Japan. It's a completely normal morning. People are heading off to work, kids are on their way to school, and the city is just humming along with the sounds of everyday life. And then, something appears in the sky. In a single, blinding instant, there's a flash of light, brighter than anything humanity had ever witnessed. The temperature at the center of the blast hits 4,000 degrees Celsius. In just a few seconds, tens of thousands of lives are just gone. An entire city is reduced to ash. This was the world's introduction to the atomic bomb, and it was the moment that forced the end of the war. The devastation was just absolute. And it really begs the question, how? How on earth did humanity push itself to this point? Well, to answer that, we have to go back to the end of the last Great War. You know, the craziest thing is that the seeds of World War II weren't planted in an act of aggression. They were planted in a peace treaty, one that was supposed to end all wars, but instead it all but guaranteed the next one. We're talking about the Treaty of Versailles. This was a document signed in 1919 that officially ended World War I. But listen, this was not a treaty between equals. It was a list of demands, pretty much forced upon a defeated and broken Germany. And the terms laid out here? They were absolutely crushing. Germany was forced to accept all of the blame for the war. Its military was gutted, basically dismantled. It lost huge pieces of its territory, land that was packed with industrial resources. This wasn't just a treaty. It was a national humiliation designed to cripple the country for generations. And then there was the money. Germany was ordered to pay the equivalent of 6.6 billion pounds in reparations. Now, that was an absolutely astronomical sum at the time. This wasn't just a fine, it was a debt so massive it would crush their economy for decades. And you can imagine, fuel this incredible anger among the German people. Now, to try and prevent this from ever happening again, the world created something called the League of Nations. And it was a beautiful idea, right? A global forum for peace, but it was a promise that completely failed. Why? Well, it had no army to enforce its decisions, and major world powers, like the United States, never even joined. It was totally powerless. So, all that resentment simmering in Germany was about to boil over. And the global Great Depression of 1929 was the final matchstick. With the economy in total ruins and millions of people out of work, people were desperate. They were looking for a savior. And one man saw his chance. This is exactly how Adolf Hitler did it. He was an expert at using the chaos, channeling all that public anger into these powerful, mesmerizing speeches. He promised to tear up that hated treaty and make Germany strong again. And people listened. His Nazi party gained more and more power until, eventually, he was made chancellor. From there, he quickly dismantled democracy, became the absolute dictator of Germany. With Hitler in power, the world started choosing sides. Two major military alliances formed. On one side, you had the Axis powers, led by Germany, Italy, and Japan. And standing against them were the Allied powers, which would eventually include the UK, France, the Soviet Union, and the United States. The stage was set. What came next was just this terrifyingly fast cascade of aggression. Hitler had promised to get Germany's territory back, and now he started taking it by force. I mean, just look at how fast the world caught fire. September 1939, Germany invades Poland, and the war begins. By June of the next year, Paris has already fallen. A year later, Germany betrays its own ally and invades the Soviet Union. And then, the final piece falls into place. December 1941, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor, pulling a reluctant United States into what was now, without a doubt, a global conflict. What made this war so different was that it became what's known as a total war. And this meant that the traditional lines between a soldier and a civilian were just completely erased. Factories, homes, public shelters, they were all considered legitimate targets. Everybody and everything was now part of the war machine. So after 6 long, brutal years of fighting on every single continent, the war finally came to an end. But the world that emerged from those ashes was fundamentally and forever changed. The human cost is it's almost impossible to comprehend. An estimated 80 million people were killed. Just let that number sink in. It is still, by far, the deadliest conflict in all of human history. And this chart right here, it just starkly shows you the horrific nature of that total war. The vast majority of those who died, over 62%, were not soldiers. They were civilians. Men, women, and children, just caught in the crossfire. The war's impact truly reached every corner of the world. In India, which was then part of the British Empire, 2.5 million soldiers fought for the Allies. But the toll back home was even worse. British wartime policies diverted food supplies, which led to the devastating Bengal famine of 1943, where an estimated 3 million civilians starved to death. Out of all this immense loss, a new world was really born. The old European empires crumbled, which helped pave the way for the end of colonialism. A new peacekeeping body, the United Nations, was formed from the ashes of the League of Nations. But the world also gained two rival superpowers, the USA and the USSR, and the terrifying new reality of the nuclear age. The war in Europe came to an end after Hitler committed suicide in his Berlin bunker as Allied forces were closing in all around him. In the Pacific, Japan fought on and only surrendered after the 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and then Nagasaki. The official end of the entire war came on September 2nd, 1945. And so, the world's deadliest conflict was over. But it left us with a chilling legacy, didn't it? It introduced us to a weapon capable of destroying ourselves completely. And that leaves us with one final, sobering thought. The war may have ended decades ago, but has the fear it created ever really left us?